And hello, welcome to Kelowna Now Live. We're on YouTube and X. Jason Mann with Marcy Zajac and Jim Check. And here we are, early days of 2024. Jim is actually a published author here, along with Ian from Kelowna Now. And together, you fellows have built and put together an annual planning and I don't know, what else would you call it? Like a goal setting system, essentially.
Well, setting tracking, yeah. So setting yourself up for a more productive, more focused year.
And it's called Mission Possible. What was the inspiration behind the name?
Mission Possible, because most people think Mission Impossible when they talk about their goals. So if you just take those words and play with them, Mission Possible, and I think the more that you can kind of like, Marcy had a good term there, like she talked to me earlier about SMART goals. The more that you can kind of like measure those goals and lay them out, the more that you can likely achieve them. And if you look at them every day, and that's what the point of the book is, and it's more paper, so you have to write them out. So it's kind of more, keeps you focused, right? Like it keeps you looking at them, because what you look at or what you focus on is what you'll get.
So maybe would you want to start at the beginning of the process? Because before you get into kind of your day-to-day evaluations and that
so
kind of stuff.
I think a lot of people get caught up in resolutions at this time of the year. They usually sit around with their friends after they've had a couple of refreshments, and they make some resolutions. And I see that because I work out on a regular basis. That's one of my things. Usually at the start of the year, you're going to see in those fitness places, you're going to see quite a few people join, and then
Drop off.
within a couple of weeks, most of them are gone.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's hard. It's hard to change habits and rituals. It's really hard, right? So we're definitely creatures of habit. So part of when you set a goal is to create the habits and rituals that go along with making that goal possible.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So there is a bit of a habit you have to create in this.
For sure. Like, and definitely like stretching a rubber band. If you want to stretch it a lot, you definitely need to put more energy in to keep it stretched, right? Because it is really easy to go back to what you're used to, right? Because that's just human nature.
Mm-hmm. Now there are some other systems kind of like this. I think that you might find. What led you to develop your own system?
Well, I think this one is a little bit different because it's mind, body, and spirit. So it's kind of like the three parameters. I think sometimes people get focused on one goal, and it's at the detriment of the other parts of their well-being. Like, and I also think body, which is it's mind, body, and spirit. I think body is one of the easiest ones for people to work on, because that's the one that you have the most control over. Whereas, if you talk about your career or your mind or whatever, lots of times people say it's out of my control because of my boss or this or that or the job or my education and all that kind of stuff. So that's a tougher one to figure out. And same as spirituality, right? With spirituality can be anything from religion to yoga to volunteering to meditation to taking lots of vacations. Whatever it is, it kind of gives you zen. And I think it's more what that is, right? So how do you find zen, right? And more family time. Lots of people will find that as their zen, right?
So maybe just take a look at the actual annual planning worksheet. This is a guided process for you to.
Yeah. So I think one of the things, like, let's just stick with body for a second. What is your ideal body? Do you know what I mean? Like, what is, like, we know where we're at, right? So what is, like, by the end of 2024, if you could have the body that you wanted, and I'm not talking about just like aesthetics, I'm talking about more like it's health too, right? So what is your ideal weight? What is your ideal, like, whether that be hairstyle, dental hygiene, whatever that is, you can lay that out. And then if you know where you are and you know where you want to get to, then it's just the tactics that get you there, right? So
now those goals do have to be, if they are SMART goals, realistic, obviously, right?
For sure.
The ideal, you might
not. Yeah, but I can't be 6'4", right?
Yeah.
No matter. I mean, I could get some elevated platforms, I guess. I could, fake it, but I can't. There's some things that I have a smaller frame, and I'll always have a smaller frame, right? And so you have to be realistic, but and you can do, like, my physical goals have matured over 5 years that I started doing this, right? So, like, I know that I'm not going to be able to do everything I want to do in 1 year. I was 50 pounds heavier 5 years ago, so it took time and to
discipline, habits.
And as you get older, it's as you're younger, metabolism is your friend. As you get older, it's not so much your friend, right? So definitely what you could eat when you're younger or drink is not the same what you can do as you're older.
And so you've kind of broken this down into almost 4 quadrants around the topic of, body, I guess, physique, your health, appearance, and food. Do you want to walk through some of those?
So like if you talk about your physique, which we just kind of said, like what is my ideal weight? And you could do that for waist, you could do that for whatever measurement that you want to use as your measuring guide. And then if you talk about food, which is really a big factor in how you look and feel. And one of the big things I did to lose 50 pounds was no sugar, no wheat for quite a while. Sugar definitely is not your friend. And sugar is in almost everything we eat, right? So it's also in most everything you drink. And there's a part as your appearance. I used to coach hockey, ring it, fastball, all that stuff. And I coached, my daughter was playing, and I coached a lot of girls teams and some of the boys teams too. But it used to be like, look sharp, play sharp. Do you know what I mean? Like if you spend the energy to get dressed up to go to the game, that's why, they make like Kelowna Rockets show up in a suit, right? Because like look sharp, play sharp, right? So you put the effort into showing up to the rink, you're ready to go, you're mentally focused and all that kind of stuff. So your appearance, like if Marcy dresses very nice, comes to work in business attire. So it sets the tone for, and you don't have to, different jobs require different things, but dress for the role that you're in or want to be in too, actually, you know what I mean? Like dress for the role that you want to be, right? You know what I mean? Like play the part that you want to be. And then a lot of those things flow into your health. And there's some things in health that you can look at, just like if you're suffering in certain areas, maybe your cardio and all that kind of stuff. So how do you fix that? So what are the things that you want to fix? Like what's ideal health look like? Because if I asked you when you're laying on your deathbed, would you take another 10 years if you did a couple simple things? Most people would say yes, right? And some of those simple things are just what you eat, right? Just what you eat. Investing in yourself is also controlling what you eat, right? Like it says, the medicine should be what you do for yourself instead of you having to take medicine. Your medicine should be, the stuff that you're doing. Like better eating for sure. Better eating is a great place to start for people. And then
especially low inflammation food sources, right?
Yeah. And then working out, right? Like don't rely on one prong, right? But then you should be, and Marcy can talk about this. Like, why don't you just explain SMART to us?
Yeah, and some of the examples that you've got for yourself.
SMART goals is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. So you're going to take your goal and you're going to break it up into those 5 categories. So specific for me is run a marathon. Measurable is I'm going to track the daily kilometers. So you want it to be number-based when you do measurable. And then achievable is you got to be realistic. So like I've already done 5Ks, 10Ks. So I know I'm capable of probably doing a half marathon if I train. And then relevant. So I value health and fitness. So that's relevant to my life. And then time-based. The marathon's in June. And then that's a good way of organizing your goal and making it happen.
Yep. So goal setting, especially for young people, is a really big thing. Like, if you start doing goal setting, we're going to talk about finance here in a second. If you start doing your goal setting early in life, it's going to really set you up for success, right? Because part of that is, and Marcy will talk about the way she sets up finance. One of the simplest things to do for finance is pay yourself first 10%, right? You had something that you wrote down there.
Yeah, so this has been a little bit of a trend happening online. It's the 50-20-20-10 budget. So you're going to take your after-tax income, break it into 4 different categories. So the first one is needs. So 50% of your income would go towards your needs like rent, utilities, etc. 20% would be your wants, clothes, makeup, that would be my wants. And then 20% into savings, and then 10% into giving, because giving back is always good. Obviously, you can adjust the numbers to what fits your lifestyle. And so, yeah, that's a good way of budgeting things and getting really nitty gritty about the numbers. So that's also like a part of having SMART goals is being measurable in that.
Some people take cans and they take their check and they cash it and then they put money in the cans, right? And then they put it in the bank later. But like, they're just like, okay, this is what I live off can. This is what I like. This is my Mad Money can, and this is my savings can. And then, do you know what I mean? Like, and then you're just you can only pull out of the can for certain things, right? It's a mental training tool, right? So you can live out of the can for a while, then you can start putting it in the bank. And the easiest thing to do, this is the first thing I did when I was probably like 19 to start saving, because I was working in the mill. and I made decent money, but I was living paycheck to paycheck because back then you would cash your check and they would give you a wad of 20s or whatever, and that would be and you would just kind of live out of your wallet, right? So at that, as you got near the end of to closer to payday, there wasn't a lot in the wallet, so you were eating less and stuff like that, right? So, so what I did is I borrowed money to buy a GIC. So my payments, I had to pay payments to pay for that GIC.
Yeah.
And that was my first savings, right?
Yeah.
So it was like forced savings, right?
That's
So,
like
It also
Adam's-
helps.
Sorry.
I was gonna say, that also helps build credit rating too, right?
for sure.
Yeah.
But it was forced savings for me because I knew I had that payment, right? Because I could have bought a car and had that payment, but I bought a GIC as my payment.
And it really changes the view of what you see it as buying an investment that way too, doesn't it?
Yeah. And then slowly, as you start to build that egg, you can now start to deploy that. Because the best employee that everybody will ever have for them is their own money. Because that if you start making that your employee, your first employee, and it goes to work and it works 24/7, and doesn't complain, doesn't call in sick or whatever, right? But if you make decent decisions and you spend the time with it, then you can grow that nest egg. Starting at 23 years old, if you take just think of if you had 10% of everything you made up till now, what you'd have, right? So it doesn't seem like much when you're doing it, because if when you first start in your first job, you're like, well, 10%, that's not much, right? $100 times 2 times 3 times 4 times, right?
What I found interesting over time is as your salary increases, like your living costs tend to easily grow and increase. With
people
that.
get a big raise and they go buy a car.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I've helped some people here that I'm close to, and I would say, okay, so you're doing okay with what you have. You get a raise. Pretend you didn't get a raise. Put all that into savings or into a TFSA or to whatever it is, and all of a sudden they're just like, well, I never saved money in my life. And I'm just like, all of a sudden they're just like, holy shit, this is easy. Whoops, this is easy, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, because instead of buying the third and fourth Starbucks or doing this and that or whatever, because it can disappear quite quickly, right?
Yeah.
So
finance, career, learning, network.
So I would say, like, here's the big thing in that quadrant is your mind quadrant. Network is huge. Networking is huge, right? So a good goal to have is network with 5 new people a year that can help you be a better you. Like, be a better you should compete with yourself. So how do you find 5 people that you can network with that you become a sum of the people you kind of hang around with? If I hung around with people that smoked heavily and drank heavily, I'm likely going to smoke and drink, right? If I hang around with a bunch of people that, are running marathons, I'm likely running a marathon, right?
There's a saying about this, or like you're the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, or something.
For
right?
sure. Do you know what I mean? So it is. So the networking is really important. So find people that, and don't ask them for stuff. I'll offer to them, right? They'll give back, right? So instead of like going and saying, "Hey, I want you to be my mentor," and they're saying like, like I'm busy, right? But what can you offer them so they give you, what I mean? Like, just being around them. And then I would say, like, if we want to stick on that for just a little bit longer, just like the one thing I do every morning is I spend an hour and a half learning. And that's either reading a book or watching YouTube videos on learning. That's the most important thing, because that's investing in you, right? If you think of all that learning, if I do 500 hours of learning is, quite a bit. That's a few courses, right? And if I take a few courses at my age at every year, think of the advantage I have over other people. Like, in AI, I don't think there's a lot of people around that can kind of like compete with what I know in AI and EV and all that other stuff, right? Like, I've pretty good knowledge in that area.
As a mentor of mine, Jim Rohn, I don't know if you know the name.
I do know.
So he would say, work hard on your job and you'll make a living. Work harder on yourself and you'll make a fortune, right? The value that you bring to the marketplace.
So learning, like constant learning, and nobody's learned everything. And then your career, definitely, like, where do you want to go? Like, what do you want to accomplish? And then the finance part of it is definitely making enough of a nest egg to start putting that money to work for you, and then starting to doing buckets, right? Like, real estate would be a bucket, and the stock market would be a bucket. Different business venture, side hustle. Those are all buckets where you would put money and stuff like that, right? What do you think of that?
I agree with the buckets. That's how I do it. Out of sight, out of mind. So I have a
Mhm.
jar at home, and whenever I have extra cash, I just put it in the jar, and it's like way deep into my closet.
There
I
you go.
haven't counted it in months. And that's how I did it. But also in college, like if I really wanted to save up for something, I was a server. So all the cash tips I would get, I would put it in the jar in my closet and just hide it. I wouldn't look at it for like a month or two and just let it grow. And then we also had these tip cards that all the debit tips would go into this little debit card that they gave us. I didn't open that app or check it for like 2 months. And then,
Nice.
so I had cash building up and then that card building up. And yeah, out of sight, out of mind.
For sure, because the temptation, that instant gratification, is tough for some people to resist, right? Do you know what I mean? Like the trinkets and the instant gratification
Starbucks.
is Starbucks for sure. So even minimizing what it is, like if you talk about health goals and we go back to food and that, if you eat for pleasure all the time, you're going to probably get yourself in trouble, right? If you start eating for health, you'll probably find yourself in a better space, right? Do you know what I mean? Because eating for pleasure,
Living
that's,
to
it's
eat.
that's that cheesecake, right? Like,
Living
you know what I mean?
to
'Cause
eat.
that's pleasure, right? Do you know what I mean? Because if you're just like, oh my god, like what a wow, you know, like this poutine thing and this cheeseburger that's
The
massive.
portions were really great.
You know what I mean? Because you're eating for pleasure. That's, you know, gluttony. But if you start eating for health, it's definitely not as like,
Yeah, so I call that
Interesting.
living to eat or eating to live.
yeah. So do you know what I mean? Like you probably want to spend time with your grandkids, don't you? Do you know what I mean? Like so that's you know, that's where you have to start making decisions as to what's more important, right? That large cheesecake or, you know, more
Yeah.
time.
What about the spiritual aspect?
That's the toughest one for a lot of people, for sure. I think especially, you know, religion is really kind of like, isn't that popular with a lot of young people these days. And so a lot of people think spirituality has to do with religion. But I think spirituality has to do with you, right? So so again, spirituality is just like, how do you find Zen? I think that's spirituality. How do you connect with yourself?
Could be a
right.
hike in the park.
Like you should want to spend time with yourself. That's when you know you've kind of found a little bit of Zen. If you're okay with just being by yourself, like if you can go somewhere and just be by yourself, like go out for dinner if you're somewhere and go by yourself and not feel awkward, you know, you've kind of like got somewhere, right? Do you know what I mean? Because if you always need somebody around you, then, you know, like there's something that you're not connecting with yourself. And then so meditation, yoga. Do you do anything for spirituality?
I like meditating and manifesting.
There
I
you
like
go.
things like that.
I've been working on manifesting.
That's good. I know you have been. I like journaling, like writing things out, getting my feelings out that way.
Writing stuff down is definitely key, right? Because the more
Mhm.
you write it down, it kind of cements it in your mind. For sure. Do you know what I mean? Like it's writing stuff out is actually you committing to yourself.
Mm-hmm. So I do like, I guess my spirituality would be me journaling. And I journal a lot. Like if I'm ever like upset, I'll journal. If something really good happened, I journaled. If I really want something or want to make things happen, I journal. So yeah, I have a really nice journal at home that's almost all filled out. So I might
Nice.
need a new one. Yeah.
Spirituality for you?
Ooh, yeah. I mean, I guess not in the typical sense, but you know, I have a kind of an emerging and fairly passionate interest in Vedic astrology. Wim Hof for sort of some mindfulness and more than mindfulness, really. There's a physiological benefit to it as well. And then I don't know. Do you count skiing?
Sure. Anything where you find Zen, right? So, you know, if you can find peace wherever you're at, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's where you can escape. I used to work in an accounting firm, and one of the things I used to like to do was like, because it was a pretty stressful like tax time, was just going home and hand watering the garden. Just, you know what I mean? Just watching the waterfall, the leaves, right? Just doing that for 30 minutes, just like this, right? Just like hand watering and just really getting immersed into just watching the water, right? So, and I think that's just connecting with nature too. Obviously, connecting with nature is a big one for sure for a lot of people. But then connection to family too is is a big thing, right? So trying to connect with family and connecting with the people around you and making real connections. Like I mean, this is my thoughts though. You're better off with a few good friends than a ton of like maybe
I agree.
friends. You know what I mean? Like, because somebody you can count on, and getting people that you can count on means that you have to be like somebody they can count on too, right? Do you know what I mean? Because it's a two-way street, right? So if you can't be counted on, why do you expect to count on other people? I think that's the thing. Look inward first before you look outward. Like look at yourself and look at what you offer and what you bring to the table.
Deep thoughts. One of the things I really appreciate about this is, first off, it sort of takes you through this process, then asks you to sort of write down your various goals and ideas and needs and the various, things that might come to your mind through that process. And then maybe even like have those grandiose, more bigger vision goals or dreams that you can kind of look 5 years ahead and then break it down into smaller
One of the things I do want to say is, though, that this is in no way a pitch to get this book. I mean, and if you need a book for free, we can give you a book for free too. But you can do this yourself, right? But the point is just to set something and to start tracking what you're doing, right? So I don't want to get confused that we're trying to like hawk a book here or whatever, right? Like you can.
No, it's just a good tool.
Yeah,
it's just a good source
to
get going, because people don't know where to begin.
Yeah.
And so luckily we're showing them, hey, this is something
and I think
we can get started.
like I said, the biggest and the easiest thing for people to do is their body, right? Because that's they have the most control over their body, right? And then and it's a no excuses type thing. I mean, again, if you're on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, there's so many motivational pieces of there, but try not to live off a motivational quote, right? Because they're just, if you don't actually find one that resonates and you find a new one every day, you're just kind of like skipping stones, right? So find a path, find a realistic path. What is it that you want to do? So the biggest thing to do before you start all this is ask yourself some questions, and ask yourself some really deep questions. Find alone time where you can say to yourself, like, and visualize, what does the ideal you look like? What is the ideal you act like? And what is the ideal you like? What are you have 3 children, so obviously you need to be a provider, right? So then what does that take? Like, how much providing do you need to do and stuff like that? So how do you attain those?
And how do you balance that between providing and being there emotionally as well, right?
Right. And I would say to people to be in the moment for sure. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're on the ski hill with the children, be there, not on your phone, right? Put the phone away. Because I think that is almost like sugar for your body, bad. Phone for your mind, bad. Do you know what I mean? When you're supposed to be somewhere else, if you're on your phone all the time, you're sitting with family, you're sitting with friends or whatever, and this is more important. Yeah. That's sugar. That's like crack for your brain, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's sugar for your brain. And I would say it's not a crack, but like, it's sugar for your brain. It's empty nothingness, right? Because what do you get after an hour of scrolling TikTok?
Nothing.
No.
Right?
Do you know what I mean? And it's not just TikTok now. It's YouTube Shorts. It's Instagram Reels. It's
Snapchat. Whatever,
Snapchat. Right? Yeah. X.
Sure.
Whatever you want. Like, like you just name your like type of sugar: brown sugar, white sugar, cane sugar, stevia. Right? Like, it's just sugar, right? Orange juice, sugar. Anyway, so then we're off to the part where you're actually you've set some goals, and you can start small, right? Like, you could start just to gain confidence. Yeah. One of my big goals that really, I think, my watershed moment, I think it was might have been 22, 23. And I was kind of going through this schleprock phase, which was a Flintstone character, right? Like, bad luck. I thought if anything bad was going to happen to me. I was working at the sawmill as a laborer, and I was smoking about a pack and a half cigarettes a day. And some guy bet me that I couldn't quit smoking, and I didn't even want to quit smoking at the time. And smoking will never hurt anybody. But anyway, I took it as a challenge, and I said to myself, if I can quit smoking, I can do anything. A couple of years later, I went back to school. So I think setting yourself up and building confidence is a big thing. You have lots of confidence for a young person.
Thanks.
right? So confidence is key. And I've had a lot of confidence after doing some things, right? I remember having a job interview at a mine site thing, and they said, like, holy cow, I've never met anybody so confident, right? So believing in yourself helps other people believe in you.
I just don't think you should ever let anything have power over you. And like, you should be the only person in control of yourself.
Right, otherwise you become a victim, right?
Yeah, and then you have the victim mentality, and you won't get to where you need to be.
Yeah, you need to take control, because, I mean, sometimes crappy stuff's going to happen to you, but you can determine what you do from there, right? Otherwise, you're giving other people control of you, right? So
Agreed.
I think that's a tough thing, right, for some people to understand, right? So
there's a lot of accountability in this.
That's the big thing, right? And it's using it. So I keep it on my desk. It's on my desk every day, and it's the first thing I do in the morning as I go through. I review yesterday, and then I plan for today, right? So there's a bunch of checklists in there that you do. And I mean, you can kind of, like, you can see. And then I grade myself every week as to A, B, and C and stuff like that too, right? So I fill it out, and then I grade myself from the week before. But again, like, if you go on vacation, maybe leave the other goals aside, the finance goals and all that other stuff, and you can even cut back on your body goals and stay in the moment and focus on kind of like that tension release and focus on where you're at. Suck up sunshine. Right? Any big goals you want to talk about that you have, or Marcy, you want to share, or anything?
Okay, I'll go.
Yeah, do it.
So my friend group and I are planning on running a marathon in June. So that's one of my big goals. My other one is I need to be better at spending less and saving more. So that's a goal of mine. And I need to engage my brain more. Like, I think I need to be reading and learning more. So the hour a day of just learning, that's a really good advice.
If you do that first, do the toughest thing. If you have one of the things that are really tough to keep, do that first. Do you know what I mean? If you get up an hour early and just spend that on learning, and all of a sudden you can put that away, then your body will want, or your mind will want it too, so you can do it at later times in the day, right? Because if you put stuff at the end of the day that you're trying to do new, the day happens to you.
Yes.
And especially with kids, there's too many other, like, I used to try to work out when I first started trying to work out, was I would do it in the after work, but that turned into, because we were raised 3 kids too, got to get home because kids got to go here, here, and here.
Exactly. Yeah.
We got a dinner thing. We got this. We got that. And then so you're only working out 2 or 3 times a week, right? And then it just becomes too easy to quit. So then I thought, I'm going to do it at lunchtime, right? So I'm going to go. I was working at an accounting firm, but then they're just like, you got a client meeting at lunch. You got a client lunch. You got a client lunch. You got a client lunch. And then just like, okay, like three days of the week I'm at client lunches, because we did a lot of lunches back then. And then so there goes that. And then so I figured it out 5 a.m. Nobody else is up.
Nobody else can run your day.
I've kept that forever, right? Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Except when I was working at a mine site, and they're at Toronto time, and I was here, and I had to join the call in the morning, which for them was 8 o'clock. For me it was 5, and I was just like, arg. It was only once a month though.
What do you think about learning time while you're driving?
Well, I mean, don't get distracted. But I mean, podcasts are better than
or books on
music.
tape.
Yeah, like listening, like, as long as you're not, like, watching YouTube videos while you're driving and stuff like that. Doing something that's going to affect your ability to drive safely, or your family's.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they need you, right? So I would say, like, listening to podcasts and stuff and that kind of stuff. Sure. I mean, it's dead time, right?
Yeah. So, and that's sort of where I've shifted my learning time, is to the car.
Yeah, because you got to commute, right? So
Yeah.
you can do a little bit on the way in and a little bit on the way out.
Yeah.
And another good time to do it is put the earbuds in and go work out.
Yeah.
And then you kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I think that the physical fitness thing is a release too. Like, it releases tension. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think, and it releases some endorphins too that actually power your day, right? So whether you do that, it's starting small. Like, when I started doing fitness again, like 5 years ago, when I was 50 pounds heavier, I could not do like 3 push-ups in a row. I could not do like probably 4 or 5 sit-ups, right? I can now do 300 push-ups in a row, like 3 sets of 100. And I can do sit up for about an hour and 20 minutes. I can do like routines. So
Yeah. I have 3 kids and things are busy. And I've definitely let that part of my life slide.
but you can do 10 push-ups on the side of the bed.
Well, this is the thing, and so I have
Right.
taken this
Roll
sort
out
of
of bed,
approach:
10 push-ups.
slow, easy goals. Just get started. Do something that's easy, like Radio Size O is a 3.5 minute little exercise routine that that I'm doing, and then like walking up the stairs, at work.
All works, yeah, for sure, right? Golf.
Ah, yeah.
Golf's great exercise.
Mhm.
I keep telling myself that.
It is though, but you're walking.
Yeah, I know. It's actually,
carrying
that's my
stuff.
Zen for sure. That's,
Mhm.
I would call that my spirituality.
Right.
The golf gods, I pray to them all the time. They don't answer a lot though.
What about so every day you're looking at your stuff and sort of reviewing, holding yourself accountable, checking things off, feeling the gratitude and gratification of accomplishing your goals and moving them forward week to week. What if do you have any tips for if you've sort of slipped up and
Yeah, I mean, I
lost your
think
way?
that's the big thing too. Like sometimes progress, like I'll say this to like say, let's go back to working out. If you go work out for 3 days in a row and you expect to see results, it's kind of crazy, right? Like it's not going to happen, right? So some people get disappointed because, nothing's happening. It's compounding, right? It's like a little bit each day. Like I said, like, you know what I mean? Like I'm still getting better physically. I think I'm in the best shape of my life, but it's 5 years and I think I'm going to be better next year. As I'm getting older, I think I'm in better shape than a lot of 20-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, but that's effort, right? Do you know what I mean? Like and one of the things I do like that I thought was good and bad. I like Lululemon, but I blame Lululemon because I was wearing really loose Lululemon. And so I was kind of like hiding it. You know what I mean? Because I was just like, oh, it's not bad. But I tried to put on a suit once and I was like, I can't even button it. Right? So now I tend to wear tighter fitting Lululemon so that I catch myself and I weigh myself every day now. So I can see if it starts to get away on me.
I think for like people who've fallen off, like
Wow.
for me, last year from January to May, I was super into weightlifting. So I was in the gym like 5 days a week and I was super consistent with it. And then when the summer came, I turned into swimming and golf and hiking. And then when the fall came, it was running. So for me, like I'm somebody that like, I can't just stick to one sort of activity. I always have to like bounce around. And if you've fallen off, like that happens, that's normal. You're not going to be judged for it. But it's being consistent that will get you places. So I would say like if you're getting back into it, do 2 days a week. The next day, do 3, 4, 5, and build your way up. And don't lift heavy. Don't just get back into it and think like, hey, I can just go lift like 100 pounds more. Like, no, you can't do that. So start off with really small progress. Like with running, like I did 2Ks and then 3 and then 5. And then like you have to build.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've fallen off, the first couple weeks is going to be hard, but don't beat yourself up.
For sure. I tore a rotator cuff once thinking I could do more.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's good for a long time now,
right.
right? Because you can't do much for a long time. So there's lots of different things. Like weightlifting is obviously a really good one, especially as you get older for building muscle. Swimming is amazing. Swimming is really good. Golf is amazing if you walk and not use a power card. Cutting back your alcohol consumption. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's always like, to not saying you shouldn't drink at all. I'm just saying like, you should limit yourself to your goals, right? Like, do you know what I mean? Because like there's a lot of sugar in a lot of the drinks that people drink, right? So
What about numbers of goals? Have you found that there's a magic range, or like I'm thinking there's probably
you
a
need to
chance to have too
prioritize,
many.
right? You can't have like I think like that's where mind, body, spirit comes into play because some of them will overlap. Like so, like I'd say like mind and body, spirit and body, golf kind of crosses over, right? Because I feel good when I golf. Plus, it makes me.
Or if you're
me
learning
fit,
while
right?
you're walking,
Right.
you're getting exercise.
And if you
you're
could make
learning.
money while you're golfing, then you can do all three. Right? So, do you know what I mean? Like if you're Rory McIlroy, you can do all three.
Yeah, or if you're doing business on the course, which also happens.
Yeah, you can figure things out, but find out what it is that you really, because there is a goal. And I think you and I work through a couple things. Like sometimes people think their tactics are their goals.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? That's the big thing. Tactics are ways to achieve a goal. If my goal is to weigh whatever that is, and one of my things is eat less sugar. Those are my tactics. Or eat less sugar, eat more vegetables, stuff like that. If that's not working, I need to change the tactics because the goal is the weight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, not the goal is not to eat less sugar. The goal, that's the tactic to get you there.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So the goal isn't to hammer 2 nails into the wall, or screw 2 screws into the wall. It's to put 2 holes in the wall.
Sure, or you're hanging a picture.
Yeah,
right.
right.
Do you know
Or
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
You're
yeah.
hanging
yeah.
a photo.
That's even better.
Right. That's
yeah.
You're hanging a photo.
Yeah.
It's not like I need to put 2 screws
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
wall.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So it's like the same thing goes for like if you're running a business. You know what I mean? Like you have to make enough at the end of the day so that you're not a laundromat. Do you know what I mean? So that you're just like money comes in the front door and goes out the back. So, and I think everybody wants to do better by their family. So as you start to raise a family, most people want to do better for their family. I think that's kind of like a primal instinct for lots of people, right? Like so you start a family and then I think that's what's troubling a lot of people right now is like, you know, like they're struggling to make those goals that, you know, like that daily struggle is getting really hard. So it's really hard to say, hey, I got these other goals, right? But I think that's the time to refocus and recenter. Like, because then maybe what you're doing right now is not going to get you there, right? Maybe you need to like step back and take a look at it and say, what is it that I really want?
Yeah. And sometimes you need to stop doing some things to make room for those new goals too, right? Obviously.
Because I think a lot of this, if you get yourself in a really bad spot, like when I was 50 pounds heavier, I was definitely in a really bad spot. Drinking 6 Coca-Colas a day. Eating out almost all the time because it was convenient because I worked really hard. I worked 16-hour days most of the time. I worked my whole life like that, 16-hour days, 7 days a week kind of thing. But then you eat kind of crappy because you're eating because there's no time to stop to eat, right? I didn't used to stop to get gas. I used to hate to stop to get gas because I was too busy, and then I run out of gas, and that really sucked. Right? So that's the same thing. Like
Yeah,
if you don't stop to get gas or stop to do the things that are right, you're going to run out of gas, right? And that's going to cause you more problems, right? So having a good roadmap, like you could go to Belize tomorrow, but unless you kind of know where you're going, do you know what I mean? Like if you had a map and said, this is how I'm going to fly there and drive there.
Got to set the sails.
So yeah, so goal setting is also important.
So I don't know how much more time you want to cover on this, but I think the last question I have is, you know, just going back to the beginning, you need to make room and space to go through this process. How much time should somebody allocate to do it, and what kind of setting? Do you have any tips?
So I think like, different people are in different spaces too. And I would say to you as a family man that has, you know, 3 kids that you're raising, we did it earlier on where we actually would do family goals. And that's a really good way to get children to kind of like learning goals. And it's also obviously better if you and your wife or partner have goals that are kind of congruent though too, right? Because if your goal is different than her goal, then, you know, there's going to be a clash at some point, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think trying to find that too, because then if you're helping each other build the goals, and if the kids are listening to the goals, you know what I mean? Like they're kind of partaking in that, that'll make life a lot better, right? And it's teaching them a life skill that's probably will be helpful for them later on too. Knowing that, you know, it's just a bar, like it's no different than a race. Because I mean, we learn all this stuff in school, right? You're in the 50-yard dash. There's the goal, right? It's 50 yards in front of you. Go get it, right? So Walter Bond said it really good, right? Go get it. Be sweet though when you're going to get it. Right? Just be sweet. Be nice. And you know that's part of the goal. So I think, and in Marcy right now, you're, how do you call it? Single as a
Pringle.
There you go.
Yeah.
So your goals are going to be a little bit different than if you had a partner, right? Do you know what I mean? Once you get a partner, then obviously, you know, I think that's an easy way to tell if that's a good match for people. Like if, you know, if Marcy's goals were to, you know, travel to Paris and like live the next 5 years as a Parisian, and then somebody else is like, no, I want to get a job in a northern mining community and I want to do that. Then obviously there's a bit of a clash there, right? So then that's probably,
as long as your goals are rooted in your values and that kind of stuff.
For sure.
Right?
And that's the thing. Finding goals that you realistically want, and if you're just writing down goals because you feel you have to fill out a piece of paper, that's probably not going to be very conducive, right?
So how much time do you need to go through this process, do you think? Like, do you set aside time? Do you make an appointment for yourself, for your family, and say, we're going to do this on this day, and here's some homework to do in advance?
I think this is a really good thing, like as you're driving home and that, to kind of like reflect for a few days. Like, what do I really want? Like, if I envision myself 5 years from now, what do I really want? Like, what do I want? can you answer those questions? I think that's the big thing. What do you really want? Like, what is, you know what I mean? Like, what is, and if you work somewhere, what do you want for the workplace? And does that tie into what you want? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you, like, you know, like, it streams to a river too, right? Like, because you have a lot of, as a family man, as a career person, and as a, you know, a community member, how do you tie all those streams to a river? And you know what I mean? And I think that one of the biggest things that I think is be okay with you, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, and people are going to throw rocks at you. As soon as you start stepping outside of where the people around you are used to, that's the tough part, right? Because as soon as you start becoming something else, some people will want to drag you back to where they think you belong. Right? That's the tougher part about being
an agent of change or changing your frequency.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, and that's why I'd say it's really good to make sure if you're in a family situation with a partner, that person is kind of like in the same space. Because sometimes what happens is that one person goes off somewhere and the other person hasn't grown with. Do you know what I mean? And then they get left behind and it becomes like contentious issue, right? So that's why it's important to have people that you want to keep with you along this journey involved in the journey.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. And then you manifest things and they happen.
That's a whole nother episode. Manifestation techniques.
Manifestation. Yeah, for sure. I mean, let's not be silly either, though, when we say things like people are just like at home and they watch Netflix and they eat Cheetos and just like, I want $1 million. You know what I mean? Like, unless there's a lottery ticket at the bottom of that Cheetos bag, it's probably not going to happen. And I think you're better off making luck than waiting for luck. Lady Luck smiles on those that work for it.
All right. Well, I know it's not a pitch for the book here, but I've started using it, and I like I like being able to sort of monitor everything. I like the ability to sort of check things off and sort of grade myself every day and every week and stay on track, and room for notes and how it incorporates sort of mind, body, and spirit and work. Yeah.
But definitely just finding out where you want to go, and then even if you write it on the fridge, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and the other thing I found really powerful is doing actually like a vision board, like taking the imagery of the goals and putting up somewhere in the bathroom where you could see
the Lamborghini and
yeah. Well, I mean, for me, it was a ski chalet, right?
Well,
like
there you
to
go.
Spend time, whether it was owned or not. I mean, to spend more time in a ski chalet and to do, you know.
So to get a ski chalet, you obviously need more money. So that means you got to work hard.
Yeah, exactly, right? So we got to wrap this up.
There you go. Hopefully that was helpful. If you have questions, you can email us, write in. But, you know, definitely as a young person here, Marcy, setting goals is so important. And it's good to see that some young people are doing it. And because I think a lot of young people are definitely disheartened right now with, you know, like unaffordable housing, all those kind of like high cost of living and that kind of stuff. But don't let that get you down. Look at it and figure out a way around it, because there are ways around it other than just, you know, like being miserable about it. Like you could start getting involved too, right? So there are ways, right? So don't give up. There's lots of stories out there. Watch the get rich quick ones. Most people get rich.
There's a lot of that out there right now.
Hard, right? So
and then there's a lot of FOMO because I'm not getting rich quick.
Notice those people that tell you how easy it is to get rich? All you have to do is send them $59. That's the trick. They're getting rich because of you.
Yeah.
Right. So if they're asking you for money, they're probably not that rich. Right.
All right. On those wise words, any last thoughts? I
think be comfortable being uncomfortable too. I think that's the big one, right? Get comfortable being uncomfortable. Because I don't like being on camera. I'm more of a mushroom. But I think we're trying this live stream out for Kelowna Now. We're trying to share. We're trying to be authentic. We're trying to do a lot more. And I think just getting comfortable, being uncomfortable is key.
How about you, Marcy?
I think just surrounding yourself with the right people is really huge. And I also agree being uncomfortable, like working out hard, that's uncomfortable. You're going to feel it the next day. But if you keep pushing through, you're going to get comfortable in the uncomfortable, and that's going to help you grow. And I think really valuing yourself and investing in you. So working out, eating right, saving money, journaling, that's investing in yourself. And that's where you're really going to see yourself.
I would echo that. Investing in yourself is the best investment you will ever make.
All right. Well, I think we all hope that you've taken something from our conversation. It's something that we've all been going through in the last couple of days and continue to do so. And, set up for a great 2024 by taking a little bit of time, investing in yourself and figuring out exactly what you want to do and how to get there. So, and if you need something to help keep you accountable and track it, I know Jim says this isn't a commercial, but I'm still going to say there is this book called Mission Possible, and you can reach out to us if you're interested in the copy.
Yeah, and we're back at 4:00 with the news.
Yeah,
it's 3:30, so we got to get on the something.
Time to roll.
All right. Thank you for watching.
Until then.